All right, we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here, your favorite wrestling fan, here to give you all the action, here to give you all the wrestling know how, all the backstage rumors behind the scenes. We talk about superstar news, inactive statuses, injury updates. We talk about contract negotiations, extensions, and signings. We talk about promotions from AEW to WWE, TNA to Ring of Honor if it makes major news in the world of professional wrestling. We talk about it here on this show every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific time. Make sure you guys catch it up, here on, your daily wrestling show. All right, just going to reflect on what we talked about right quick. We talked about our AEW Dynamite review. We talked about my TNA Ring of Honor preview, and I got a typo right there. There we go. And now we're going to talk about TNA Bound for Glory. Should be, should be pretty cool. But of course, before we do any of that, just want to remind you guys to go ahead and drop your drop your hot takes inside that chat. Tell me how you feel. Maybe give me some of your predictions that's going to happen on TNA. It's going to be a great PLE. It seems like ever since the collaboration happened between NXT and TNA, the ticket sales have been selling through the roof, selling through pre-sale. And this is a wrestling promotion that went from performing in front of tens of thousands of fans. And of course, after the falling out in the late 2000s, early 2010s, they went down to about, maybe like 5,000. And now these guys are wrestling probably in front of like 3,000 people. And and the fact that they're selling out arenas where they can add ticket revenue, they can sell merchandise, they could basically kind of staple their name in terms of professional wrestling on the main slate in terms of a lot of conglomerate wrestling promotions that are basically in the millions and billions, like All Elite Wrestling, like the WWE. Obviously, WWE, seems like it can't be really that much, touch. They have become basically the status quo of what a successful professional wrestling promotion should really do. But, necessarily, I believe that. I do. I believe that. But at the same time, some of the bookings, especially during the years of 2017 to the end of the COVID era, professional wrestling, storylines were scarce. Superstars were, they were not forced, but some of the wrestlers stepped up. Most of them kind of took a seat back during these unprecedented times, during these dangerous times, where literally you can you can walk out at to the grocery store, you can walk out to a doctor's appointment, you can go out there and wrestle with your fellow superstar, or in this terms, kind of like a co-star, like a coworker, and like maybe they contracted COVID-19, and then all of a sudden you get sick, and then you get the quarantine, and it just wasn't easy, and that's something that WWE really kind of struggled with. That's the reason why they built the Thunderdome. That's the reason why they do have that performance center located in the back of Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay, Florida. So definitely a lot of wrestling promotions, didn't really survive that COVID-19 outbreak where they were forced to wrestle in front of, fanless arenas. You lost ticket sales, you lost merchandise sales, and that takes a hurt. That takes a hurt. In terms of that, it's like, losing popularity. You lose ratings, and ratings obviously keep you guys afloat. Recently, in terms of streaming services, has kind of made it a little more easier in terms of basically any entertainment. You can kind of become your public relations representative based on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. Back then, they didn't really have that. So, of course, it's kind of hard for a wrestling promotion to kind of die subsequently, but I don't know. I feel like TNA did a really good job of surviving, during the pandemic, and trying to keep the company afloat, especially when Dixie Carter left with her Panda Energy sponsorship. Obviously, her dad was the CEO, and that's where they got most of their money. So, all right, moving on to the TNA Bound for Glory predictions. Obviously, first we're going to talk about Bound for Glory pre-show. We have a 20-person call your shot gauntlet match. Winner gets a shot at they get a shot at a nice little, shiny golden trophy, good for that. But that's not the trophy that they're fighting for. It's the fact that they are fighting for a contract that he can invoke at any time within 1 year for a championship match of his or her choosing. Obviously, I got them talking about, what's going to happen on TNA Impact, where they're going to have a match where the loser will be number one and the winner will, be in that coveted number 20 spot, having the best chances of winning this gauntlet match. So it should be pretty interesting. Josh Alexander taking on Steve Macklin. These guys have been beefing back and forth for quite some time. Finally, we're going to get, a little closure. Finally, we're going to get to find out what these two guys are, made for. Josh Alexander has not yet been confirmed of signing an extension with his contract with TNA. This might be a way of him basically being, hey, like if I lose this match, I get to put Steve Macklin over because right now Josh Alexander is definitely one of the best, contemporary wrestlers on the TNA roster, and having Steve Macklin pick up a victory has got to be good for his confidence, got to be good for his career. Definitely the perception that he has in terms of the TNA audiences and stuff like that. I got a chat from my main man Anthony Mazzano once again. Thank you so much for helping me out yesterday. Almost a disaster. Definitely, blessed to see you here attending the show. We have Moose, the former TNA World Heavyweight Champion, taking on Mike Santana. Mike Santana he's been on a roll. He's been on a roll. I feel like he's definitely the next hot thing in terms of TNA. I believe that, besides, Joe Hendry, besides Steve Macklin, and even besides Josh Alexander, you kind of have Mike Santana there that could definitely get the job done. He puts on great wrestling matches, every single time. And although he does have that capability, he does have that experience, and he could definitely come off as that absolutely dominant, controlling the ring tempo throughout his matches, but at the same time, he could definitely work to his opponents, and he makes his opponents look good. That's something that a lot of wrestling figures can't really mention, even in the past, like even some of the matches that happening, even talk about like in the 80s with Hulk Hogan. Some of the matches that Hogan wrestled with some guys are like, hey, they were, told in an interview that Hogan, basically, it was like a smash match. He basically kicked their ass and then bam, that was it. That's not really the necessarily way to help promote your wrestling promotion. But I feel like Mike Santana is the future at TNA. I feel like he's gonna pick up this dub tonight, and I'm all for it. Next, we have the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. We have Spitfire, the team of Danny Luna and Jody Threat taking on Rosemary and Wendy Chu. This should be interesting. This should be really interesting because both of these stars, half of them, one's NXT, one is TNA. I feel like it'd be super badass if you have these girls win. You know, um, Although I am super high on Spitfire. I love Luna. I love Threat. And there's nothing against them, but I feel like it would be great for the collaboration of NXT if you're gonna have Rosemary and Wendy Chu. And like I said on NXT, how Wendy Chu basically kidnapped Tatum Paxley. So we might find out how that storyline's going to unfold there as well. TNA X Division Championship, we have Mike Bailey taking on El Hijo del Vindico. And, I want to see, I feel like Mike Bailey could definitely pick up the win here. Mike Bailey is a fighting champion. I would hate to see him lose. But of course, if you want the company to go into a different direction, much like you see in WWE WrestleMania, some of these matches, some of these title exchanges are kind of like hey, you know what? Let's start fresh. Let's go and start fresh with this promotion. Let's, dive on into a whole nother avalanche, a whole nother mountain of bookings where we can possibly promote younger talents, and but ultimately, just kind of help to make the product seem like new, new and edgy. Like I said before, the unpredictability factor is kind of overbearing in terms of professional wrestling, but at the same time, sometimes it could be good. And it's that fine line, it's that in between, it's that gray area. It can't be black or white. It's that gray area that makes for great wrestling bookings. And let's see if TNA can answer the challenge and have that happen at TNA Bound for Glory. All right, next we have PCO, the French Canadian Frankenstein, taking on Matt Cardona for the TNA Digital Championship and the International Heavyweight Championship in the Monsters Ball match. I don't want to see Matt Cardona win. And I know that might be a hot take. I know that might be a hot take. I understand that. I agree. When Matt Cardona came back to TNA, he's been great. He's been even before that he was great. Like he went literally he recreated his character after being released from WWE back in 2021. He recreated his character to be, just like this, some badass, some guy that every single time he grabs the mic, you have to pay attention to every word he says. You're lingering on it. You're hooked. You don't know if he's gonna leave you a cliffhanger or if he's gonna slap you in the mouth vocally. You don't know that's gonna happen. But PCO has worked so damn hard in terms of this in this book, and I feel like if Matt Cardona wins, it's kind of like not like a weakness in terms of TNA, but I feel like this whole storyline could be done better. I feel like after everything that's happening with Steph D. Lander and Matt Cardona coming back to TNA, joining forces once again. Obviously, she was under contract and stuff like that. I feel like it's been building up to this moment of Matt Cardona, becoming the new digital media champion. And I'm not saying he could be. I'm not saying he's a bad champion. I'm not saying that whatsoever. I'm just saying that for the sake of things making sense in the world of total non-stop action. I definitely feel like PCO gonna he's gonna have to pick up the victory here. All right, we have a TNA World Tag Team Championship match, a three-way Full Metal Mayhem match. We have the Hardys taking on ABC, taking on Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers of the System. When the System has regained those tag team championships at TNA Bound for Glory, Slammiversary, excuse me. You know, I was upset. I was upset. I was ready for a tag team like ABC ultimately to, usher in this new fast-paced environment. Then you look at Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers, and I'm not trying to hate on, bigger dudes or more of a rough shot, more of a roughneck kind of style of the tag team wrestling division. Obviously, it's been very popular in the past. The keyword the past, right? You had the Four Horsemen do it. You had Arn Anderson and his tag team partner. You've had damn it, who are those other guys? I can't remember. Oh my god. You had Mike Rotunda and Wyndham as well. You had these guys, but then in terms of the tag team division, it needs to be more. I feel like it needs to be more fast paced, and I feel like Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers every single time they step inside the ring, it's more of a slow motion, not really like a fast pace, not really in that much environment. I feel like it is exciting, basically based on how these guys are, absolutely full heels, 1,010%. But that just doesn't appeal to fans all the time. There has to be some sort of discrepancy. There has to be a new, innovative idea that could take TNA Tag Team to the next level. Because I feel like right now it's kind of, it's not like a lack thereof, or it's not like necessarily they're sinking, but I feel like it could be that much better. And when ABC won the championships, I was excited for this new era, and then only to have them drop the titles back. I don't know. I just don't want to see the Hardys regain the title. And I know that might be a hot take. And I know that, I'm like, oh, if you're a wrestling fan, you want to see the Hardys, retain. I don't. I don't. Next, we have a TNA Knockouts World Championship match. Jordynne Grace taking on Masha Slamovich. These girls have fought once before. Masha Slamovich was literally, a move. She was a hair. She was literally inches away of knocking off Jordynne Grace. But, Jordynne Grace has just had so much momentum lately that I can't really imagine anybody taking her title. So it's, I'm kind of like at a loss for this match. I feel like Jordynne Grace, 90%, maybe even like 95%. Masha Slamovich has that slight 5% chance where she could edge out the best, the greatest TNA Knockouts World Heavyweight Champion of all time. Next, we have the main event. The main event featuring Nic Nemeth, the champion for the TNA World Championship. Special guest referee Frankie Kazarian, I felt like was unnecessary. I didn't like that he was booked as the special guest referee. Ultimately, I didn't agree with it. I didn't think it was a great way to kind of, to have this match. be bigger than it actually, than it actually is. You have Joe Hendry, the sweetheart of professional wrestling. He made his way into WWE NXT. He was an absolute bombshell. He's a star. He's an international sensation. The fact that you have to add Kazarian just makes me believe that he's probably going to get screwed. Nic Nemeth will probably retain. TNA had to add in like that little outside factor that could be like, all right, Joe Hendry's going to pick up the win here. But the best thing to do is to keep the belt on Nemeth. So we're gonna have Frankie Kazarian be the special guest referee. Got a chat from my man Anthony Mazzano here. I think Spitfire retains the title. It doesn't matter or makes sense to put Wendy and Rosemary because Wendy is an NXT superstar. She's not always gonna be on the show to defend the titles. I do believe that, but at the same time, I disagree. Just a little bit of respectfully, of course. With this collaboration between WWE, NXT, and TNA, I kind of thought this was going to happen when you had the Rascals taking on Axiom and Nathan Frazier with Wes Lee. I thought they were going to take the NXT tag team titles and bring them across the brand to kind of have this. You kind of have to tune into both shows. And so, essentially, all the viewers that are coming to NXT during this new day and age on the CW, where they're becoming their own entity in terms of business wise, and it's forcing wrestlers. It's also forcing the audience to watch some TNA, just watch some TNA, because TNA obviously is it's a diamond in the rough. I feel like they have a lot of great wrestlers on tap. I definitely feel like they are stars. So having maybe Wendy and Rosemary, not the right match. Maybe not the right match, but it adds a little bit of a nuance, also a different like I said, they're kind of like this dark and ominous figure where they can perhaps, add a bunch of storylines. But overall, Rosemary, she had a hot start in the recent months. It feels like not recent months, maybe like 8 weeks or so. Like she went from this dominant force in TNA, and now she's I don't know. Now she's losing the matches on NXT against I love Keilani Jordan as the NXT North American champion, but I thought Rosemary was I don't know. I thought she was better. I thought and it's not an indictment on how how Jordan is also on Rosemary, but I don't know. I just feel like it could be beneficial and also marketable. Great approach for both of these promotions kind of have that kind of aspect and perspective and stuff like that. All right, guys. So hey, do not go anywhere. We're going to jump on into our fourth segment. We have Goldberg's WWE plans have been released. I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. Bam. All right. So join me. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, but do not go anywhere.